Welcome back to From Corporate to Cashflow. We are Andrea Cannon and Liz Schwab, two pharmacists navigating the process of building time and financial freedom through real estate, lending, and investing while working our day jobs. Navigating the journey is difficult, but our podcast guests are experts in showing us how it's done. And today we have Matt Starr with us today. Matt, thanks so much for joining us.
I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here with you guys.
So sweet. Thanks, Matt. Well, I'm very excited to get to know you a little bit more here. So let's start off here, and if you could just maybe give us a summary of like your real estate journey. I know
Mhm.
I say summary. For many people, it's more than like one sentence, right? So go into that as much as you'd like to, and then we would
Yeah,
love to hear more about the Path to Own program as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate you for giving me the platform, Liz. I'm super excited to share with you guys and give you some insight into what's been. There's no way to overstate that it's definitely been a roller coaster. So, I've been a business owner since early 2017. I come from the health and fitness industry, and for the first, half decade of me being an entrepreneur, I spent all of my time in health and fitness. I had lost 125 pounds in another life, and I became avidly obsessed with everything nutrition, dietetics, and fitness. So I had a personal training studio, an online coaching business, and I had a meal prep service here in LA County where I'm based. And I had done that for a long time and I loved the work. And for a younger guy from an immigrant family, I was relatively successful, a little bit prideful, kind of arrogant, but having fun. And in 2021, my younger brother, who was 18 years old at the time, got hired as a salesperson for a real estate company here in LA. And within about 6, maybe 7 months, the kid was making more money than me. And I was like, okay, whatever this real estate stuff is, like, I gotta go check it out. And unfortunately, those were my intentions. Super transactional, make as much money as possible, and not oriented around the fact that there's people behind property. And so I ended up in a pretty aggressive downward spiral, actually. Small tangent that I think is kind of fun to share. The first real estate event I went to, and when I was really like, oh my gosh, this is real, I had all of my friends from high school quit their jobs. I was like, quit your jobs, do this thing, you're all going to become rich. Look at Grant Cardone, right? And so that was my introduction. I have them all quit their jobs, and we're going to this real estate event. I'm like, we have to look professional. So I buy everybody suits. I buy everybody Louboutins, I buy VIP tickets, and I fly everybody out to the event. We get to
Whoa.
this event. Yeah, no, it's bad. No, it gets worse because we get to this real estate event, and what I didn't know is that most real estate investors are wearing like a Hawaiian shirt and like cargo shorts. And so stick out like a sore thumb, have no freaking clue what we're talking about or doing, but we're posing. So that was my introduction into real estate. And unfortunately, I had met a mentor at that event that recognized, hey, there's some kid over there that has like money hanging out of his pocket. Let me see what I can do. And a few more relationships like that, some partnerships came into play. And I got to a point where I had lost all liquidity that I had saved up for the first, years that I've been in business. I got into massive credit card debt, business loans. I sold my crypto, my stocks, everything to my name. And then to top it off, I had also disappointed my, immigrant family that came to America to give me an opportunity. And so they asked me very politely to leave home. And so my brother and I ended up sleeping in my car um, for about 6 or 7 months while I was figuring out this real estate thing. And in that car, I found my faith, most importantly, and I recognized that pride and naivety and just evident lack of willingness to serve had led me down to this downward spiral. And so in that, I was able to find myself, rebuild myself, and by the grace of God, move forward from there. So in 2017, I'm sorry, 2017. In 2022, I started to do relatively good. I started to pay off the debt and I started to build the business. And so I've been trending by the grace of God in a good direction since then. And the biggest lesson inherently in that was I had to recognize that I was dealing with people because I had lost that sensitivity when I first got into the business. So that's a really high level on like the backstory. And by the grace of God, I'm trending in a fun direction.
Yeah, no, I love that. And you're right. I think a lot of people do lose sight that there are people behind it, right? And, sometimes it works out if money is your motivation, but a lot of times it doesn't because then you make choices and decisions that, you wouldn't otherwise make when you think of, there's a family at the end of this or, someone that has never had housing before. So I love that you redirected and found kind of like your purpose for alignment with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was
And
everything.
while yeah, and I mean it's a great story too, right? I mean, wow, like I mean not that I say it's great because
No,
it's sad that it happened, right? But the
yeah,
comeback story
yes,
is
yeah,
it's good, right?
yeah.
So can you tell us about the Path to Own program then?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think to address what you said, you have to get torn down to get built back up. I think that's necessary, right? Before, like the idea of bamboo, how does bamboo grow? Bamboo doesn't just grow instantly when you plant a seed. You plant a seed and you water it, and you look like an idiot watering dirt for 5 years. But what's going below the surface is the roots are going deeper and deeper and deeper. And then overnight, bamboo shoots up, and everybody's like, dude, where'd you get this tree? It's so cool, right? So that's been a little bit of my story. But in terms of the Path to Own program, so in my business right now, we have a few different verticals in terms of how we generate revenue and how we actually add value to our local communities. But Path to Own is the program behind BuyTheRate.com. BuyTheRate.com, we have a vision that over the next 5 years, we're going to help 600 families become first-time homeowners. I truly do believe that average Americans, especially within my demographic, have been undercut in terms of their ability to achieve homeownership. And I think that homeownership is an initial and very important step towards financial independence, but certainly not an exclusive or stop. So, of those 600 families that we're going to be providing housing to through owner financed homes, we intend to actually edify, build up, educate them to become first time real estate investors. So we're going to help 1,000 people or 1,000 families in total. In terms of my business right now, where we're trending, the goal is to build a portfolio of $200 million in assets under management between our multifamily portfolio and our single family owner financed homes. That'll expect to generate us between $390,000 to $400,000 net a month of cash flow. So yeah,
Yeah, I think what
fun, fun,
is
fun.
so like unique and great about this is that not only are you putting people into housing, but then you're turning around and, like you said, educating them and giving them opportunities to then take part going forward too, right? So you're
Exactly.
teaching them to fish.
Yes.
Like you give them a fish, help them, and then you teach them, right?
Exactly. Right. So my business model, like I wish I could say I'm like some revolutionary who figured out that you could be the bank and provide housing, but that's not the case. The way that I separate myself from the marketplace and add value to my clients is, let's say Andrea, she wanted to buy a property from us and become a homeowner. Before Andrea is even allowed to buy a home from us, she's going through a financial literacy course with a success
Mhm.
manager. She's going through budgeting. She's going through education on the secret expenses behind home ownership, right? Nobody tells you about the fact that the AC is 7 years old and it's going to bust soon. So it's those things. And then once Andrea has went through that entire process, we owner finance her a home. And then every 6 months, she has a success manager that meets with her. So Andrea pops a new baby or she's ready to move to another city. We connect her to, let's say, a property manager. Or Andrea, it's time to refinance that home coming up. So let's connect you to a credit repair company with 2 years of runway so that you have enough time. So the goal is to be a resource and develop lifelong relationships. I think that you guys are in the business of lending. I'm in the business of borrowing money. And the people who lend me money don't lend to me because of my business model. They invest because of the relationship that I've cultivated with them. I want to do the same thing with these people that I'm lending to through a different vehicle.
Yeah, no, oh my gosh, I love this so much. And Andrea and I talk about this a lot, and I know it's repetitive, but we always talk about how like so many things that are so helpful in life are never taught in school, right? And unless you have someone that went through that experience and can tell you, how are you supposed to know? And so like when I was looking at houses for the first time, I go into like the utility room and I was like, I couldn't even tell you like what any of this is. And like, really? Like, like how is that okay? Is that normal? And so I think that that's great that you are educating them then, like on financial literacy, like the components of the house. So I think that
Yeah.
is so needed, and a lot of times it's just not part of the experience. To your point, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And practically speaking, there is a psychology behind it, right? Because we are engaging with somebody to get into the biggest buying decision of their life. It does shorten our sales cycle. It adds a ton of value to us. Sorry, I just got a message. It's like pretty awesome. My partner on my 204 unit just sent me a message saying he just finished a call for $1 million that was just raised for our deal. Like, let's go. Sorry, I had to tangent quickly, but yes,
That's good. Yeah,
Great timing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
honestly, like the best timing. But yes, I'll say this much. I think that education is foundational. And Liz, you said it best. Like, it's just, we're not taught this stuff, even if we seek it. I got into real estate thinking, okay, I'll hire the mentors to like skip the mistakes. I proceeded to make the mistakes and still hire the mentors. So I think there's no exclusive, but working with people that you align with morally and ethically will accelerate your growth curve tenfold.
And I also, I mean, I first got connected with you through the low equity semester that you offered for sub two and learned a ton through that. And actually, Liz and I were wholesaling for a bit together. I actually still wholesale now, but Liz was like, no, thank you. But so she and I are both focused more on lending, but I learned so much from you on that. And one of the coolest things I think in general is how you've taken that low equity model and then turned it into more of a service-based business. Because I think, we talked about this before, but there's plenty of people out there that are just focused on making money, making money, making money. And then when you turn it around and it's more of a service-based thing, it's really cool how many lives you can change and how many people you can impact.
The ripple effect of one real estate deal is pretty surreal. It's actually unreasonable. Like when you look at it on a 10-year time horizon, what it means for that family to become homeowners. And on the front end, like you said, Andrea, I taught that low equity course. And this business model actually was me being reactionary in the beginning because I had these low equity homes and I got them under contract, but they weren't an ideal fit for my portfolio or somebody I know. I had to figure out the best and highest use for any property is a primary home because homeowners aren't looking at cash on cash return or an IRR. They're focused on a secure place for their family to live. So it started out as that. And then when I started doing these deals, I'm like, oh my gosh, it just feels so much better to do this than like negotiate based on like some return basis for an investor who's renting the property out. And so I fell in love with the model and seeing what it's done for the families that I've worked with since 23 that I started doing this, it's been so amazing.
That's awesome. And so I know you're based out of California. Are you doing deals in California? Are you doing them across the country? Where are you kind of focused?
Yeah, like keep me like 10 foot pole from anything in California. I'm just kidding. I'll be really vulnerable and say that I have not done anything. So I'm born and raised in LA, but I haven't done one deal in LA at all. The closest has been in like a Palm Springs or like a Desert Hot Springs. But generally, where we do deals, Texas, North and South Carolina. Those are my target markets where I spend most of my resources and marketing dollars.
Oh, that's awesome. And I know
Yeah.
you're not just working with low equity homes or path to own,
Yeah.
but you're also doing, you kind of alluded to it a little earlier, 200 unit. Give us some backstory on multifamily, raising money,
Okay.
there's all kinds of stuff going on. Tell everybody.
Oh, all the things. I'm first of all, I have to say I'm so grateful for having an incredible team. I'm not physically capable of being on an incredible podcast like this unless I have like a super team behind me, right? So I'm very thankful that I've been able to build that or trend in the direction where we're building a machine together, and that's what I'm grateful for. Um, to tell you about multifamily, I still have to start with low equity because that is the foundation. We source deals on market. And when you source deals on market, you're dealing with real estate agents, people that are actively in a local demographic. So for me, if you remember that course, I wasn't really focused. Like Mike was the guy who was like really focused on the deal. And I was like really focused on the real estate agent. And those real estate agents have been the thing that have changed my life more than anything. Those real estate agents, one specifically that I did a sub two deal with him in, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago. And since then, I've done 6 single family home deals with him. Then he brought me my 15 unit deal. And then earlier this year, he's like, "Hey Matt, so like I've got this friend who's a neurologist and he bought some land in 2016 and decided his first development project was going to be this 204 unit property. He now wants to sell it." And like that's how the deal came about. So it came from those relationships again. But yeah, we're doing a lot of fun stuff. Obviously, we've got the wholesale business. That's the active income. That's what gets my team paid and excited. The wrap business, and that's buytherate.com and Path to Own. And then we do syndicate multifamily as well. And that's, more at scale. That's a little bit of a tighter group that I work with. But those are kind of the 3 vehicles that I'm scaling in right now. Yeah, fun.
Okay, wow, that's a lot. Yeah. So you're certainly very busy, right? And I
I
know
try.
you told us about your experience at the real estate conference, which a
Yeah.
great visual picturing you guys all in your like suits and everything. Because you're right. When you go to these conferences, you're like, are you at the conference or like who are like you can't really like tell, right? Like you're like,
Yeah.
right? Did you just roll out of bed? Like sometimes you just don't know. You don't know. And so obviously you've learned some lessons since then. So
Mhm.
this may be kind of hard, but what would you say is like one of the biggest lessons you've learned that you wish you would have known at the very beginning? And it can be related to like lending and just like anything.
Yeah, I would say it's who, not how. That's been the biggest, most practical thing that's changed my life the most. I come from a background where, yeah, I had a couple of cooks for the meal prep and a couple people catering, but really I was a self-employed individual. And stepping into an industry like this one, it really does take a tribe if the vision is big. And I've casted a vision that's really big and it would not be feasible on my own. So what I've recognized is that I have an inherent skill set that can be amplified by specific individuals. I've sought out those individuals. So somebody who's scaling their business, whether it be that or lending or whatever they're looking to do, I think it's really necessary to understand yourself and then to become a magnet towards those people that align with your skill set and values. That's been the
Yeah.
thing that's changed my life 100%.
Yeah. No, I love that too. And then talking more specifically with your Path to Own program, is there anything
Yeah.
like a big lesson that you learned in your
Oh, yeah.
experience of developing?
Yeah. Not every deal goes great. Before it
Yeah.
was Path to Own, I was already doing these types of deals. And similar to your guys' business, I am acting as the lender in this case. The difference is that I'm acting in a junior position, unlike your guys' deals where you're in the most secure position in a real estate deal. And so what I've learned is the vetting process has to be very tactful and very, very vulnerable on the borrower's side. And I say that because I have a deal right now that I originally sold in 2023. It's a property in San Antonio to an incredible family. They were a young couple. It came from one of my property managers, and they were looking to become homeowners. We found a perfect property for them. I sold it to them. They invested like $60,000 into the property, like right out of the gate to like make it, their home. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, fast forward to today, they're falling behind on payments and,
Mm,
really losing track of that. And what I learned in that is that I didn't do enough front end DD on where their money was coming from. They had an opportunity for a lump sum that they made a bunch of money on the front end. And then their actual income past that line when I first sold them the property was really tough. So they were robbing
yeah.
Peter to
Okay.
pay Paul. And so now I'm liable for that mortgage so that the seller's credit doesn't get impacted. So I'm paying mortgage on a house that I'm not making any money on. So there's pros and cons. And that's why Pop to Own
Yeah.
and Buy the Rate are set up the way they are. Super focused on
Yeah.
education, super focused on developing a relationship. I'm not here to sell you a home to foreclose on you. That's the last thing I want to
Right. So at a very high level, like how do you recommend
do.
people do the vetting? I mean, obviously
Yeah,
that sometimes you're just going to get burned regardless of your
yeah,
due diligence.
yeah.
But like what would be your high level recommendation for that process?
Yeah, so when it comes to owner financing homes, Dodd-Frank limits how many homes you can owner finance per year unless you go through certain criteria. And one of the things that they recommend or require really is to work with a registered mortgage loan originator. So the one I use, it's a website called calltheunderwriter.com. It's like 500 bucks. And what they act as is they're almost a bank underwriter, but they work for this third party. And so when I do get into a deal with one of these new buyers, after going through my due diligence process, I send them to this third party. And what the third party does is they assess their qualification to be able to be a homeowner outside of, the conventional credit and whatever, but they look at rent history and job and all the things and they aggregate and then they give you this file that basically says, we think this is a good borrower or not. The ball's in your court whether you want to sell them the deal. You could still sell it to them. But for me, also to get like God forbid if I have to foreclose on someone and then they're like, Matt scammed me. I didn't know what I was getting into. I can always fall back on the fact that this third party company provided me verification that this was a viable buyer. So it's those types of things, and we have a pretty extensive process in terms of the front end. Like I said, the education that is very necessary, but practically calltheunderwriter.com is one of the layers of protection that I set up. The other thing, if somebody's getting into this business model, that I would really recommend, if your state allows it, because not every does. So in Texas, you can't do what I'm about to tell you. But one of the things that I do now is if I'm going to owner finance, let's say Liz a home, I'm going to set up a transaction where until Liz builds X amount of equity, say 20% in the property, she doesn't take full title. So she doesn't actually take the deed. And in that transaction, I'm able to insulate myself. So if God forbid something does happen and Liz doesn't make a payment, it's easier for me to get her out of the property and to restart the process. And on the other end, if let's say Liz gets to 20% and then she ends up defaulting, I have enough equity in the property to be able to do a refinance at no cost. And so I'm relatively insulated. So that's a model that I really like in terms of securitization that makes this business model a little bit safer than the way that I've done it so far.
Mhm. And it
Yeah.
sounds like both the call the underwriter example and other things you shared are good examples of who, not how. How do you find these who's?
Yeah. Great question. I think there's no stupid questions, there's only stupid answers, right? And I'm one to really be annoying about questions. So like I'll find out who are the people who are doing what I want to be doing or am doing at the highest level, and I will bug the crap out of them. And I'll bug their friends. And like, hey, he's not picking up. Hey, can you give me his, whatever. And I've done that. And I've never taken it personal when people don't respond or whatever, but that's what's helped me figure out some of those gaps. So I think you have to ask questions and you have to be willing to look dumb. I think falling on the knife is like the best thing somebody can do as they're building their business.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I mean, I think, for us, we're navigating that journey right now with lending, right? And
Yeah.
so we really pivoted last year at the end of the year towards lending, and we're still trying to do that ourselves. So we're, primarily working with other people who are doing this as their business rather than just
Yeah.
starting it all on our own, so we can kind of
Yes.
learn the same thing, because it's a lot of who, not how in this industry for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so thinking about just how everything has evolved, and you've got all these, businesses kind of going at the same time, what habits or routines have you developed to stay productive and focused on your goals?
Yeah. Well, the routine's honestly correlated from when I first lost that 125 pounds. Um, my nutrition is relatively dialed in. I'm pretty consistent from a calorie tracking perspective to a macro tracking perspective. I'm training less right now because of the season that I'm in, but generally I work out 4 to 5 times a week, and that's from a mental perspective. When COVID hit, I was like a running junkie, so like I had a season there. So I think that from a physical fitness perspective, I think my spiritual life has been the thing that's grown the most because I've been challenged the most there. So I do my absolute best to pray regularly, to pray tactfully. For people that are not of the faith, I would recommend meditation to that same capacity. I think that it's important, introspective. I'm not one to journal, but what I do is I have voice memos and I just kind of talk to myself. And because I can't keep up with how fast I talk when I write, but I can just yap. So I do that, and it's been really fruitful. I bought this like toy. I actually have it on right now. It's this limitless pendant. You might have seen it, and I'm a huge fan of it. Like since I used to just use like the Apple Notes thing, but like this thing is amazing. So anybody in your audience who's like a crackhead like me, highly recommend Limitless AI Pendant.
Yeah, I can relate on the no journaling thing, right? I know so many gurus, but Andrew probably does too. They journal. I'm like, I can't do it. Like ever since pharmacy school, I'm like, I don't want to write anything down. And so I like the voice memo idea. I think that's
Yeah,
genius. So
it's
good call
fun.
there.
Something I forgot to note to you guys, but when I was in college before I lost the weight, I was actually pre-pharma. That was my
Oh,
guaranteed route. Yeah, I was pre.
okay. All
I
right.
was a bi- I was a biochem major, trending pharma. Yeah.
There you
In fact,
go.
In fact, early on, my freshman year of college, I did like an internship at a pharmacy for literally like a week, maybe 2 weeks. And I'm sorry, girls. Okay, you guys do like cool pharmacy stuff, but like I'll be honest, it was like the most depressing environment I've ever been in my life. And I was like, yep, I'm never gonna have the job.
It is. It is. Yeah. I don't. That's okay for you to say that because I think that's very true. No offense to any of the pharmacists listening.
That's
But
what I was gonna say.
yes. Yeah. There you go. There you go. So, okay, so let's take a step back because I know I already like alluded to the real estate conference that you went to with your suits, but then obviously after that you had like lost money and then came back. So let's talk to you when you first started this period, right? Or
Mhm.
someone that would have been in your shoes. So someone that's newly starting their real estate or not even real estate, maybe just financial freedom journey.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
piece of advice with everything that you know now would you give them in like 30 seconds?
Skills and the development of skills and investing in the development of those skills is so much more valuable than chasing a check. So much more valuable. I would much rather, if I could start from scratch today, I wouldn't hire any mentors. I would meet somebody who's really good at what they do, and I would offer to work for them for free. If that meant I can swim along, that would be the most valuable thing. And I wish I would have done that. But every time I talk to a new person, and I work with a lot of newer investors, I always advise them to find someone you're in alignment with and do everything you can to get into their sphere of influence and serve to the best of your capacity. You will grow so much further and so much faster by just doing that rather than chasing a specific deal.
Yeah. And then as follow up, so what if someone is struggling to figure out like, okay, so maybe I want to start my financial freedom journey. How do
Yeah.
I figure out who I'm in alignment with? Like what types of like things are you looking for, right? Where you're like, yes, okay, I can see myself in this person's shoes. Or like if you have
Yeah.
any type of advice for how they could even start that process, what would it look like?
Yeah. I think starting with the end in mind in that capacity. So recently, I host a meetup here in LA every week, and I had a girl come up to me, really, really sweet, and she offered me money. She was like, "I want to be a private money lender for you," and like you usually get somebody like that, and you're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I've got this deal." But the first thing I did is I pulled back and I said, um, what are you interested in? What are you
Hmm.
focused on? Right. And she started telling me that, like, I really want to own mobile home parks. I'm just new to real estate. So this is going to be a way for me to make passive income. And what I had explained to her is, hey, look, I'd love to borrow, your money, but I think for your growth's sake, the same advice that I give to somebody looking to work for somebody, I would advise when it comes to lending. I would rather lend to somebody who's doing the thing that I want to learn how to do. And I told her, like, set the caveat to that borrower and say, hey, look, I will give you my money and I'll even do it at a lower rate of return if it means I get to learn the operations behind the business model. And I think that that becomes a skip the line. So I think somebody looking after financial freedom should first figure out the long term vehicle and reverse engineer accordingly.
Yeah, no, it's genius. I think a word that's coming to my mind during this conversation is like intentional, right? So like what is your
Yeah.
intent behind your actions? So we talked about the people and like the service side of it, right?
Yes.
But then just going back to other people, right, that come to you. So
Yeah.
understanding like where their mind is and where they want to end up. And so even if they don't make that connection, you are helping guiding them to make that connection
Absolutely.
for them, which I think is just so valuable because so many of us don't and never had that type of like mentorship for
Yeah.
someone to help guide you down that path, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can work your butt off, get a really good education, have a high paying job, and not be exposed to this type of thinking in general. Because it's not like you have to be a little bit crazy to get into the world that we're in. And I think what's really cool about your guys' vision, bluntly, is that you guys are acting as a bridge between a lot of crazies and then people that are like normal. I think that's an incredible vehicle and an incredible position to be in for the people that want to be involved with the crazy, but maybe like to sleep 8 hours a day or something like that. you know?
I
To your
love
point, when I started like in real estate in general and when I became like exposed to more of these individuals that are on these platforms, like you guys are insane. But now I'm like, okay, I get it. Like I can see the vision, right? And so like you start to change and then you're like, okay, to your point, I will bridge into
Yeah.
the other people that are like, you guys are insane. You're like, no, no, no. Here, let me just show you. Let me like, bridge you
Check this
together.
out. Yes,
Right,
yes.
right.
Yeah, I've
Thank
had
you.
in the last week conversations with four different pharmacists actually who are interested in getting more into real estate, kind of like in the sphere that me and Liz are talking about. And every single one of them is like, how did you even find out about this? Like, how do you even know this existed?
Yep. Yep.
And so, yeah, that definitely that bridge is a key thing because there's so much more out there and you don't learn it in school. And especially if you were some
No.
of those people that did the kind of the straight through route. Like, I mean, me and Liz were like, head down, we're going to get there. We're going to get our
Yeah.
doctor. We're going to be pharmacists. We're going to do it. Like, you don't see any of these things. And there's so much more
Yeah.
out there and a lot of cool opportunities.
Yeah, and that's the fun part. Why? So, like, even if you do go down that route and you are exposed to investing, it's like S&P 500 and get an 8% return, maybe, or like invest in like a CD at 4%. Like, they're not fun. But when you invest in real estate deals, you're investing in the renovation of entire communities. You're investing in the complete change of a family's trajectory for the next generation. Like, you're investing in so much greater of a cause. And I think that real estate, again, me going to a real estate conference, I thought that everybody's like billionaire with a big B, right? But it's actually like regular folks that find passion and genuinely enjoy it. And I think that it's a vehicle that allows us to truly add value to our local markets. And I think that's the most fun part about it.
I love that. I love that so much. And I think having that piece of it, not just being about the money, will serve you well going forward in your businesses because you're doing it with
Totally.
integrity, and it's so cool to watch. I've been cheering you on along the way. I got to see you present at the Dealmakers event. Where you were raising money. It's just really cool seeing that whole trajectory and watching it happen, and cool to get to know you. So thanks so much for sharing about your journey. We really appreciate it. And thinking about outside of money and those sorts of things, right? Which we talked a lot about helping people in general, but I want to hear a little bit maybe about your outside goals. So we want to hear just a fun end of podcast question about maybe an upcoming bucket list trip you have, or some sort of
Ooh.
adventure you're looking forward to. I know we were just fishing in Montana recently, so that was super fun.
Heck yeah. Yeah, it's been a lot of traveling actually for me recently. Like, not like, hey, I travel 300 times a year, but but it's been fun. Like after Montana, I went back to Texas. I went on a trip with my family, and then I'll be in Virginia here in about a week. So like I'm kind of doing the thing. But in terms of like a bucket list trip, like something that I'm really excited about, God willing, within the next 365 days, I'll be a married man, and she's absolutely obsessed with all things Italian. So the intention is going to be for us to spend a good amount of time in Italy and enjoy that together. I'm also excited because I'm getting to the age where, like, if I go back to Russia, I won't like get picked up in the airport and like end up in the military. So it's going to be really nice to like end up like go back. So those are the two things that I'm most excited about. But honestly, I love what I do. Like I work 7 days a week. Like my last appointment, like I'm hosting a meetup today through 10 p.m. and then I still have things to do. But like I love it, and that's the most blessed part about this, is that this is really something that gives me energy.
So what type of collaborations or, how can people work with you right now? Like, what are you looking for, or what would be of value to you and to the other
Yeah.
individuals?
Yeah. Well, one project that I was very excited to talk about while I got that tax is I do have the 204 unit property. That is a 506c, so it is for accredited investors only. And to be an accredited investor is very basic. You have $1 million in net worth minus your personal residence, or you have a an income, I think, for a combined household of 350 grand, and for an individual like 250 grand. So if you clear those thresholds, this is an opportunity that somebody could invest in. Um, 2023 built property, B plus property, A minus, 204 units. We're buying it for $29 million. It was appraised for 35.8 in April of this year. So we're buying it at a pretty good discount. It's a new property, good deal. So if somebody's looking to invest as an equity investor, those are people that I'm often taking on. That's not the only project that I have going live right now, but that's just the biggest and most exciting one. Between myself and my partners on that deal, there's over 1,500 units under management, $300 million in real estate. So very strong team to invest in. Like I said earlier, it's really important to know who you're investing with, and especially when it comes to an equity investment rather than a debt investment. Other than that, I'm always working with new investors. Over the last 18 months or so, I've helped about 30 people get, maybe honestly, maybe I'm gonna give myself some credit, maybe like 16 months. I've helped like 30 people get their first real estate deal,
Yeah,
which I'm
that's
very
awesome.
grateful for. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun. It's something that actually, hopefully, by the time you guys air this podcast, it'll be 31 because we have another person who has their first deal under contract right now. So yeah, I mean, there's opportunity for collaboration, whether it's to work internally on our team or to invest in the deals that we're grinding our butts off for. If somebody's interested in joining a Bible study with entrepreneurs, I host a weekly Bible study at Fridays at 5:30 p.m. PST. We're going through the book of Acts right now, so would be welcoming everybody from your guys' audience there. And if you're Southern California based, I host a weekly meetup every single Tuesday as well. So I try to be as value driven as I can.
Oh man, absolutely. It's very apparent. And I I this sounds so corny, but it's so true. But it's like it's super impressive, how much you have accomplished over such a relatively small
Yeah,
period of time, right?
yeah.
and growth isn't always like linear, but man, it just seems like you just really skyrocketed, getting this all organized and figured out. And I'm sure it's not without hurdles and it's not easy, but you can really tell you're really passionate about what you're doing. And I think obviously we've talked about this, but I think that at the end of the day, if you know like what your goal is and that it's really affecting people's lives and making a positive difference in, that their life as a whole, it's easier to stay on that course and to be aligned, and to be in that flow and everything kind of just, I don't want to say it works out, but at the end of the day, it kind of does. And I feel I'm getting
Absolutely.
that sense from you.
Yes. Yeah. People ask me often, like, Matt, you don't burn out, da 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 da. Da." And like, I think burnout is a lack of momentum and a lack of clarity or perspective on what's really going on. Like the reason why I don't burn out is because I love this shit. Like for me, this is so fun. Like even talking about real estate, it like gives me energy. And you won't believe this, but I'm actually an introvert naturally. I have the ability
Yay.
to flip it. There we go. I have the ability to turn the switch on. And like when I talk to people that I'm comfortable with, I can, be myself a little bit more. But naturally, like networking event, I'm definitely like the cool guy in the corner, like
Right.
that's me generally, and I have to turn it on. But this gives me life and it's really fun. And I
Yeah.
think that burnout is a choice.
Yeah. At least you're in the corner. You could be in the hotel room or not even in the conference. Hotel.
Okay, in cons, in cons. So okay, so when I do turn it on though, so like the last real estate conference I went to, I always make sure like I have these timed. I'm like, okay, 2 hours of networking, go to the room, hide from everybody for 15 minutes, recharge, okay, back down. And so like I have this on like lock at this point.
Yeah. No, I love that. Oh, it speaks to my soul. Okay, so I know we've learned like so much about you, and there are different
Yeah,
opportunities to work with you, and I'm sure that
yeah,
there are going to be people that would like to get in contact with you after this too. So
yeah.
what is the best way for anyone to get in contact with you?
Yeah, I think the easiest way would be to add me on Instagram. My social media handle is right there, or I don't know if they can see it, but at House Huncho, HouseHuncho. I'm also totally comfortable with your guys' audience sharing my Blink card. On my Blink card, I have my cell, my email, and all of the different links for all the things that I host. So I'm more than happy to share that. Whether it's to be a resource or just, a sounding board, I'm happy to do that to the best of my ability.
Awesome. Well, we super appreciate your time, Matt. This has been so much fun. Like I said, it's been awesome to see your entire trajectory, and I know there's so much more to come. So, once again, super appreciate you being here and really appreciate everyone for listening in to this week's episode of From Corporate to Cashflow. We will catch you next week.
Peace.